Woody Allen, what makes you laugh?
I'm an easy laugher.
A good audience.
I'm a good audience, yeah. Now, I don't laugh out loud, but I'm a big enjoyer. I mean, I enjoy, all the comedy movies, all the old comedy movies, all the Marx Brothers movies, and the Chaplin and Keaton films, and Mort Sahl and Jonathan Winters and Nichols and May, and I'm a very easy laugher.
How about literarily?
Benchley and Perlman, just about exclusively, and I don't think anybody else does it to me at all in terms of literature.
When did you feel, Woody Allen, that you had made some sort of quantum jump, that you were nationally known and you had a certain amount of momentum?
I'm just beginning to feel that. I know people that know me or that have heard of me think that I'm much better known than I am. But I'm just beginning now with the emergence of my films. I'm just beginning to become nationally known. But there's no reason for me to be really nationally known because I do very little television. I mean, I've appeared on a few shows in the last 3 years or the last 4 years. I've been on a half dozen times, really, and generally it's been late at night.
You really seriously doubt that you're a household word now?
I do doubt that I am, and I find that, when I come out and play concerts, I get very, very small attendance, and I'm not a drawing name at all. My movies do very well, but I can't follow the reviews because there's so many hundreds of them in the country. Film reviews are not like theater reviews. In the theater, you pick up the paper, you see 3 reviews, and you know what to expect. In films, we open the picture in New York, and you get a good review here and a bad review there. Then you open it in L.A., and you get a good review and a bad review. And then you open it in Utah and Cleveland and Cincinnati. And before you know it, there's thousands of film reviews that come in over the country. So, films are not related to reviews. Films are related to something else entirely. Whereas with a play, if you don't get perfect reviews, it's a little bit of a struggle.
In the one city that you're in with the play, whereas the movie is in so many different places.
The movie, sure, is an international thing, but even just in the United States, thousands of reviews come in. And I have no idea, why one thing does well and another thing doesn't, but I think I'm just beginning to become known to the public.
Why do you go on playing concerts then?
Well, I play them very rarely. I'm on a little concert tour at the moment, which is really 6 weeks long, and it will be the first time in, I'd say, 2 years that I've appeared anyplace live, and I probably won't appear again live for another 2 or 3 years. So I don't do many concerts.
But you just want to get what President Johnson used to call the feel of the flesh, or what?
I think it's a good thing to, because I am basically a comedian, and I don't think it's a good idea to leave it and never do it. So I like to, every couple of years, I like to appear a little.
Can you think of something that you've learned recently in this particular tour? Is that a tough question?
Well, I can think of something that I learned, believe it or not, that I can sustain staying on stage longer than I thought I could. I always had a problem. Owners of clubs always used to ask me if I could please do a little more time, because I have a tendency to get on stage, talk for half an hour, and get off. And that's not long enough for a starring act. And I found on this particular tour, by trying it, because the demands on me were greater, that I could stay on for 45 minutes and even an hour and reasonably sustain it.
Yeah, but you're not after the big yuck, the belly laugh, are you? You're after something slightly different.
Oh, no. I'm after the big laughs. I mean, I consider it a disaster if I don't get a continual big laughter. I think all comedians, ultimately have got to go for that.
Well, in a way, I'm surprised to hear you say that, because I thought of you more as a subtle comedian. But
sometimes it comes out that way, and I don't get the big laughs. But but it's not. It shouldn't. It shouldn't. I mean, hopefully, I would like to get the big laughs.
Can you say why that's so important?
Because in comedy, there's no question about it. When you're standing up there, you get a sense of great tension and frustration when they're not coming. And even if you're getting big laughs for 20 minutes or so, and then you reach a little low point for maybe 1 minute and you don't get them, you feel it. It's like being suffocated to death, and it's not a pleasant feeling. And it's hard to explain it to someone that hasn't done it, but you get what they call flop sweat, and you start to, it's a very unpleasant feeling not to get that, because that's what a comedian does. I guess it would be like if you were singing off key or something.
What kind of audiences are the good audiences nowadays? Young people, older people, what?
Well, for me, I can never categorize my audience because I don't think I have a special audience. I think that's good and also bad. I don't think, I see in my audiences there's young kids and there's older people, and I've never been, people used to say to me you'd be a great favorite with colleges. I was never a great favorite with colleges, and I was never a great favorite with older people. I always had a smattering of people from each group, but I never was a particular favorite from any of those groups.
How about ethnically? How about Jewish people? Do they appreciate you more than other groups do?
Well, I think Jewish people go out a lot. I think Jewish people form a good part of the audience in the big cities. They have a tendency to like theater and like entertainment. So I'm aware that they're there, and consequently, I think they build up a certain sophistication or a responsiveness to entertainment, and they're good audiences for comedy in particular. So I think that the Jewish audience is a theater and comedian-oriented audience. So there is that. But I've played places where there were practically no Jewish people, and they're fine.
Is there such a thing as Jewish humor, Woody?
I guess there is. Sure. You mean?
Do you dabble in it?
Only to the extent that I'm Jewish and that it's with me intrinsically.
And it's
I'm
not planned.
No, I don't plan to appeal to any group or to all I do is.
Isn't it true that
Yeah.
the great comedians have historically been Jewish?
Most of them, or a good portion of a disproportionate amount, have been, I think.
Let's talk about one or two who have not been. Who can you think of? The stand-up comedian.
Well, Bob Hope,
Yeah.
I can think of, who I think in his heyday was an absolutely great comedian. I always get a lot of criticism when I say that because in recent years he hasn't been up to par,
And also he has taken very strong political views, which in a way has disaffected the other group.
Yes,
Other group, but he
agree.
remains.
He was a great comedian. W.C. Fields was not Jewish, and Jonathan Winters is not Jewish. Chaplin and Sellers are both half Jewish. So I don't know where you want to put them. But I think there's
Now we have a new wave of black comedians.
Well, I think that's good. I think that there will never be enough comedians. I don't think that's ever going to be a worry to comedians that there's too many of them. There's generally, when you look up and take all the comedians in America, all of them on television and nightclubs, and what do you have? 75 comedians or something in the whole country. That's everybody you can think of that you would know, say. That's not one of the fears, is that there's going to be too many of them. Usually, there's generally about a half dozen prominent ones or 10 prominent ones, and that's not really enough to cover the enormous amount of demand there is for humor.
As an actor, I'm talking now, I've seen you on stage and on the screen as well. You seem mostly to portray yourself. This isn't original with me. A lot of people have said that. I'm not sure if it's true or not, but that's the way it seems. And in that respect, you could be compared to Cary Grant, Gary Cooper, John Wayne.
It's a funny comparison. I think that when you go out in films, you have to have some kind of personality, and it's all luck whether you do or you don't. There's nothing you can do about it. So what happens is you appear in a movie, and either the audience responds to you, that is, you have some kind of personality trait that they can identify immediately, or not. And it has nothing to do with talent or nothing to do with acting, because the guys you mentioned, like Wayne and Gary Cooper and Bogart, are not in a class, for instance, not even close to an actor like, say, Paul Muni. And Muni...
Muni is famous for the ability to change himself from role to role.
And this
right,
you find, there's certain actors on stage, like Jason Robards and Paul Muni, are these incredible stage actors, and they get on the screen and something happens and they don't really score heavily, and yet you get actors that were relatively mediocre, like Bogart or Clark Gable, and they have that one-dimensional quality that works on the screen, even though they're not good actors. And fit into that category. I'm not really much of an actor, but I have a personality that is, for better or worse, identifiable to an audience. I mean, they know what it is to expect.
Was this a conscious decision that you made? You assessed yourself as
Oh,
an
no,
attraction?
no, it's all
It
luck.
just happened.
It's pure luck. You go out and do it, and either you wash off the screen or you don't. You know, I mean, there's no way of helping it.
Woody, let's end this section of our conversation, if you will, with a paragraph from a short story of yours called, what is it called? A Look at Organized Crime.
Right.
And if you would just read
Sure.
that paragraph there, I'd
Okay,
appreciate
if I can say this first, though, it's not a short story, actually. It's an essay, and it was meant to be read. So I want to make this distinction before I read it. The humor in the piece is supposed to occur in your mind rather than when you hear it. So I've never heard it before out loud, so it'll be interesting to see if it's funny when you read it out loud. In the same book that appears in, I have a play called Death Knocks, and that was also meant to be read and occur in your mind. And all over the country, they've produced Death Knocks in schools and amateur groups, and it never works on stage. They always call me up and say, can we do it? And I say, sure. And they always do it. They've made it into an opera. They've made it into a cartoon. They've directed it all that. And it never works when you do it out loud because it was meant to occur in the mind, sort of. And I think that's probably true about this, but I will read it anyhow because we have nothing to lose.
With that disclaimer, this paragraph.
Yeah, okay. History of organized crime in the United States. In 1921, Thomas the Butcher Cavello and Ciro the Tailor Santucci attempted to organize disparate ethnic groups of the underworld and thus take over Chicago. This was foiled when Albert, the logical positivist Carrillo, assassinated Kid Lipsky by locking him in a closet and sucking all the air out through a straw. Lipsky's brother Mendy, alias Mendy Lewis, alias Mendy Larson, alias Mendy alias, avenged Lipsky's murder by abducting Santucci's brother, Gaetano, also known as Little Tony, or Rabbi Henry Sharpstein, and returning him several weeks later in 27 separate mason jars. This signaled the beginning of a bloodbath. Dominic the herpetologist, my own, shot Lucky Lorenzo, so nicknamed when a bomb that went off in his hat failed to kill him, outside a bar in Chicago. In return, Carrillo and his men traced my own to Newark and made his head into a wind instrument. At this point, the Vitali gang, run by Giuseppe Vitali, real name Quincy Baedeker, made their move to take over all bootlegging in Harlem from Irish Larry Doyle, a racketeer so suspicious that he refused to let anybody in New York ever get behind him, and walked down the street constantly pirouetting and spinning around. Doyle was killed when the Squigliante Construction Company decided to erect their new offices on the bridge of his nose. Doyle's lieutenant, Little Petey, alias Big Petey Ross, now took command. He resisted the Vitali takeover and lured Vitali to an empty Midtown garage on the pretext that a costume party was being held there. Unsuspecting, Vitali walked into the garage dressed as a giant mouse and was instantly riddled with machine gun bullets. Out of loyalty to their slain chief, Vitali's men immediately defected to Ross. So did Vitali's fiancée, Bea Moretti, a showgirl and star of the hit Broadway musical Say Kaddish, who wound up marrying Ross, although she later sued him for divorce, charging that he once spread an unpleasant ointment on her.
Well, Woody Allen, you've already read us a couple of paragraphs from your essay, what is it called? A Look at Organized Crime. Can we hear another one?
Sure. Fearing federal intervention, Vincent Calambrero, the buttered toast king, called for a truce. Calambrero has such tight control over all buttered toast moving in and out of New Jersey that one word from him could ruin breakfast for 2/3 of the nation. All members of the underworld were summoned to a dinner in Perth Amboy where Calambrero told them that internal warfare must stop and that from then on they had to dress decently and stop slinking around. Letters formally signed with a black hand would in the future be signed best wishes, and all territory would be divided equally, with New Jersey going to Calambrero's mother. Thus the Mafia, or Cosa Nostra, literally my toothpaste or our toothpaste, was born. 2 days later, Calambrero got into a nice hot tub to take a bath and has been missing for the past 46 years.
Woody, many of the people who have written about the Mafia have been harassed or, in some cases, murdered. Have you? I know you have been murdered. Have you been harassed by the Mafia? Are they after you?
No, not that I know of. I think, that they don't take me seriously.
Is there a Mafia?
Oh, is there a mafia? We don't know if there's a mafia because, I'm a big crime fan, and I've read tons of books and articles and everything, and they're always conflicting. I mean, great experts tell you that there is none, and then experts tell you that there is one, and, so no one's ever been able to determine if there is a mafia or not.
What's your next movie project?
Don't have a movie. I don't have one. I'm doing a play. I don't want to do a movie.
Writing
so
a play
close. No, I wrote a play. I don't want to. I wrote 2 one-act plays that David Merrick is producing, and I don't want the movies to come out so close together.
Your plays are kind of what they call talky rather than moving. Is that a fair observation about them?
I'm not sure exactly what you mean.
Well, for instance, it's very important to pay close attention to what the words are. You can't really tell what's going on from just watching the way the people or the furniture moves around.
No, I wouldn't say that's true. I would say that the opposite is true. I have a tendency to that's why I think Play It Again, Sam made a better movie than a play. I have a tendency to not really have mastered playwriting too much, and I have a tendency to create a lot of problems for the director, and my stuff I think is more suited to more movement and more, a bigger production and more mobility.
In one of your films, Bananas, you have Howard Cosell reporting from the consummation of a wedding night, and I think from a funeral and various other places. That was almost too close to reality. It was funny, yes, but it was very close to the Howard Cosell that we know and the kind of news reportage that we have.
That's why I hired him, because I didn't want an actor doing it. I wanted Cosell doing it, and he was wonderful.
Why Cosell?
Because Cosell has some kind of spectacular charisma. Whether you like him or don't like him, you can't deny his enormous uniqueness and his great stage presence. You're aware of him on stage. His voice has a great journalistic urgency to it. He's got a funny face and a funny, inquisitive, probing, belligerent attitude, and he is a star. He's the most famous sportscaster in history, and deservedly so.
And did you write the part for him? Was it Howard?
I wrote it with him in mind. I never thought I'd get him, but all we had to do was call him up, and he was on the plane the next day.
I understand that under his new contract, he's not allowed to do commercial ventures anymore.
That I don't know.
That would be disappointing to you if true.
Yeah, it'd be surprising, too, because I know one of the things that's interested him recently is doing more commercial ventures.
Have you ever thought of making the switch the other way, where he has gone from reportage to fiction films? Do you think that you have something to add, importantly, to documentary techniques?
I like the documentary technique, and Take the Money and Run. My first film was a fake documentary. I mean, a very broad pseudo-documentary. But I like that field very much, and at some point I think I would like to do a comedy, but in a very, very real documentary style. I think that's an interesting form.
I think it's fair to say, step on me if I'm wrong, that you have had in your work that I have read and seen and so on, an obsession with sex. Okay? Is it true?
Yes.
Talk about it. Why?
Well, it's involuntary. I have an obsession with death and an obsession with sex. It appears, both of those subjects appear in my work all the time, and I don't know why. I just know that if left alone, I write all the time, and then if you look up at the end of the year and you see what I've written, and what jokes I tell in my act, and what jokes appear in my movies or plays, an enormous amount of them revolve around sex, and quite a few revolve around death.
Now, in everything you always wanted to know about sex, were there any sequences or questions in the book, in the Dr. Rubin book, that you left out that you didn't use? Maybe you could tell us one or two ideas that you have that never were employed in the making of that film.
Well, I didn't use practically all the questions in the book, because there's only, I think,
you only used 7, I think.
Is it 7 questions in the movie? We had an idea that we even filmed that didn't work, where the girl and I were in it. We played 2 spiders. We had elaborate...
What was the question? Do you remember?
Yes, what makes a man a homosexual? And I crawl into her web, and we have intercourse, and then she devours me afterward. And we had elaborate costumes made, and a big web made out of steel cable, and it took us weeks to shoot. And
Sounds
it
like
was
a ballet.
hard. It was an interesting idea, but we couldn't have enough mobility on the web to make the thing work. It just didn't work. I know that there are two subjects that are very, very open for comedy, that death is a very rich source of humor, and it is to me anyhow, and sex too is something that I could never take seriously, and always I just think it's one of the silliest things, enjoyable but really silly, and wide open for comedy.
No point in analyzing it then.
I don't think you can analyze humor. I think, it's always a surprise to me. When I'm writing jokes, they come as a big surprise to me, when I'm in the room by myself and I'm looking for a joke and I'm thinking and thinking and suddenly I hear myself say the joke. I'm hearing it for the first time just like anyone else, and it's funny. You don't think of the joke and then say it. You say it and then you write down what you said.
Well, it's interesting. I've talked to other performers, comedians in the past, and they do have kind of compulsion to make jokes. Yet you and I have been talking for quite a while, and you obviously are free of that. You don't feel that because you're a humorist, you have to be humorous right now.
No, I'm never on, really, unless they're paying me, I have a really scroungy attitude towards it. It's not even a conscious attitude. I wake up in the morning and I'm generally disgruntled and busy and bored and hostile and I'm never the life of the party or amusing or anything like that. When I get on stage, it's enough of an effort to be. Sometimes I can't make it work there either, and then it's really embarrassing. But usually I can. Usually I can rise up to the occasion enough to get an audience laughing.
Well, would you be willing to look a little bit ahead? Usually people's interest in sex decreases, at least so the charts and graphs from Dr. Kinsey tell us. Do you suppose that this will become a decreasing part of your repertoire?
It wouldn't bother me if it did, I don't care. I think that it's so involuntary that it would, once you're free of the obsession of having to chase women, you can spend a lot more time working.
Aristotle, I think it was, said, "Thank God I'm 70 and sex is behind me. Now I can begin to work."
I know that feeling. It is when you wake up in the morning and you're sexually obsessed. There is a tendency, it distracts you from your work, and it's a shame. It's like being hungry or something. You want to have a meal and then get to work. And so, of course, I have an enormously cold and mechanical view of sex anyhow, so.
Cold, mechanical in what way?
I don't have an enormously romantic view of, view of it.
Little known fact is that you were in high school with Eric Siegel, the author of Love Story. Did you know each other?
No, this is what I think, that he was 1 year younger than me. Of course, in high school, I knew nobody. I came to school at the last second, didn't speak to anybody, did the minimal amount of work, and went home afterward.
He's also a film writer, I guess, to some extent. Love Story was his film as well.
Mm-hmm, right.
So Midwood High School in Brooklyn, New York turned out a couple of well-known film writers. Any particular reason?
Pure accident. Just a coincidence. I went to Midwood, but I really had no kind of enriching life there. It was not a. I wasn't crazy about going there.
Now you are a stand-up comedian, a writer of essays and humorous pieces, a director, a filmmaker, a musician also. Is there one capacity in which you feel most at home?
Well, it's funny. I enjoy playing music more than anything else, only because I don't do it professionally, and there's no demands on me, and it has the quality of a hobby, But I feel most at home sitting home and writing, because
frankly, I think that's what you're very best at. That's the thing I enjoy the most.
That's what I feel the most fun doing. But the trouble is, comes a time when you have to go and put it out. You know what I mean? You have to go and either get it produced or get it published or say it to an audience, so...
And you reach so many more people when you do it rather than write it.
I think you do. I don't think anybody reads anymore at all.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Apparently, to judge by what you've written and some of the things that you've done on stage, you think of yourself as a kind of loser. And yet, you've had the adulation of critics. People have called you the most important humorist of our time. And yet your book is called Getting Even. You know, what can Woody Allen be getting even for?
I have a feeling that everybody feels like a loser, you know, automatically. And if they don't, they're wrong, because everyone is a loser, you know. So
Why, Woody?
you just impossible to not be a loser. Just the very facts of life make you, you know, just your.
Could you tell me a sample fact of life or two?
Well, we know that we're mortal. You know, so already, I mean, people find themselves living here and they don't know why they are, and they can't get their human relations straightened out, and before they know it, they die, and they never knew what anything was all about. And so you're automatically a loser. You know, there's no question about it. In fact, I don't like people that aren't self-effacing. I take an instant loathing to them. You know, I just can't help it. I just don't like people that are confident, and I don't trust them, and I never have. And I'm always attracted to people, men and women, who are self-effacing.
Well, on that happy note, can we bring this conversation with Woody Allen to a close with perhaps another section from A Look at Organized Crime? Maybe this particular section, Woody, I can read with you.
Okay. Wiretapping. Wiretapping cannot be employed indiscriminately, but its effectiveness is illustrated by this transcript of a conversation between two gang bosses in the New York area whose phones had been tapped by the FBI. Hello, Rico?
Hello?
Rico?
Hello?
Rico?
I can't hear you.
Is that you, Rico? I can't hear you.
What?
Can you hear me?
Hello?
Rico?
We have a bad connection.
Can you hear me?
Hello?
Rico?
Hello?
Operator, we have a bad connection.
Hang up and dial again, sir.
Hello? Because of this evidence, Anthony the Fish Rotuno and Rico Panzini were convicted and are currently serving 15 years in Sing Sing for illegal possession of Bensonhurst.
Woody Allen, the comedian, the writer, the practically everything in show business. Thanks very much. This is Stephen Banker in Washington.